Emily, a devoted housemaid in her mid-20s, bore the heavy weight of constant humiliation at the hands of her employers. Despite her dreams soaring higher than the confines of her uniform, she faced daily scorn and mistreatment. One fateful day, the universe smiled upon her, and she won the lottery. The unexpected windfall filled her with newfound hope and courage, inspiring her to embrace this miracle with open arms. She vowed to spread joy and share her transformative story with others, encouraging them to welcome life's surprises, savor the journey, subscribe to positivity, and stay vigilant for new opportunities. If you are not subscribed, I recommend you subscribe and activate the bell so you don't miss any videos. The rich aroma of freshly prepared soup wafted through the grand kitchen of the Anderson mansion. Emily, with hands calloused from relentless labor, meticulously prepared the meal, hoping to earn a rare moment of approval. As she carefully ladled the soup into the delicate porcelain bowls, her heart raced with a mix of anxiety and anticipation. This was her chance to prove her worth, to show that she was more than just a maid. Miss Anderson, a woman whose outward elegance masked a heart full of cruelty, took a sip of the soup, her face contorted with disdain. "This is disgusting," she bellowed, hurling the spoon back into the bowl. "Are you trying to kill us with all this salt?" Emily's heart sank, the sharp sting of the words cutting deeper than any physical blow. Years of degradation and belittlement boiled over, igniting a fierce resolve within her. Mr. Anderson, absorbed in his business dealings and indifferent to the turmoil at home, attempted to pacify his wife with a feeble, "It's not that bad, darling," but his words fell flat, doing nothing to stem the torrent of Mrs. Anderson's harsh criticism. Each cruel word struck Emily like a whip, leaving deep, invisible scars on her spirit. With hands trembling and her heart pounding with a mix of rage and helplessness, Emily gathered the dishes, her mind racing. As she moved through the kitchen, Emily overheard the Andersons' hushed conversation. They spoke in urgent, strained voices about their mounting debts, reckless gambling, and a business teetering on the edge of ruin. The illusion of their perfect life shattered before her eyes, revealing the brittle, desperate reality beneath. This revelation, coupled with her lottery win, filled Emily with a newfound sense of empowerment and determination to seize control of her destiny. With her lottery winnings, Emily envisioned a future free from servitude and humiliation. She dreamed of opening her restaurant, where she could showcase her culinary talents and create a warm, welcoming environment for all. The bitterness and cruelty of the Andersons would no longer define her life. Instead, she would be the architect of her happiness, building a life filled with love, respect, and fulfillment. The next morning, Emily awoke with a renewed sense of purpose. She tendered her resignation to the Andersons, leaving them stunned and speechless. As she walked away from the mansion that had been both her prison and her proving ground, she felt a weight lift from her shoulders. The future stretched out before her, filled with endless possibilities and the promise of a brighter tomorrow. Emily's journey from a humiliated maid to a lottery winner and aspiring restaurateur was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. Her story was one of triumph over adversity, of finding strength in the face of overwhelming odds, and of daring to dream beyond the constraints of her circumstances. She knew that the road ahead would not be easy, but with her newfound courage and determination, she was ready to embrace whatever challenges came her way. As Emily embarked on this new chapter of her life, she carried with her the lessons learned from her time at the Anderson mansion. She understood the importance of treating others with kindness and respect, valuing hard work and perseverance, and never allowing anyone to diminish her worth. Her past, with all its trials and tribulations, had shaped her into the strong, resilient woman she had become. And with every step she took towards her dreams, Emily knew that she was not just walking towards a new future, but also honoring the journey that had brought her to this moment of triumph. That night, alone in her small, dimly lit room, Emily wept, not only for the years of humiliation she had endured, but also for the startling realization that her oppressors were as fragile and vulnerable as she was. A seed of vengeance, an emotion she had never before entertained, began to take root in her mind. With tears still wet on her cheeks, she drifted into a restless sleep, a new determination hardening within her. She would no longer be the victim in this story. As dawn broke, the first rays of sunlight filtered through the delicate silk curtains, casting a soft glow across the Anderson mansion. Emily rose early, her movements mechanical as she began her daily chores, her mind still replaying the tumultuous events of the previous night. While tidying Mr. Anderson's study, a glimmer caught her eye. Amidst the cluttered chaos of disordered papers, a lottery ticket lay partially concealed. Her heart pounded in her chest as she picked it up with trembling hands. In that fleeting moment, she envisioned an entirely different life, one free from oppression and endless humiliation. Acting on impulse, she discreetly slipped the ticket into her apron pocket. No sooner had she finished cleaning than the shrill cries of Mrs. Anderson echoed through the house. "My ticket. Where's my ticket?" The mansion erupted into chaos, with accusations flying and a frantic search underway. Emily's heart raced, her pulse quickening with each passing second as she maintained her innocence. The weight of the lottery ticket in her pocket felt like a heavy burden, almost too much to bear. Mrs. Anderson, her eyes blazing with fury, began to methodically search each employee. When it was Emily's turn, time seemed to stand still. The oppressive silence in the room was deafening as Mrs. Anderson's hands roughly patted down her body, searching for any sign of the missing ticket. Emily's mind raced, and she silently prayed for a miracle, her heart pounding louder than ever. Each second felt like an eternity, but the ticket remained concealed. Mrs. Anderson moved on, leaving Emily shaken but undetected. The rest of the day passed in a blur of anxiety and suppressed adrenaline. Emily's mind was a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. The small piece of paper now represented a lifeline, a chance to escape her current reality and start anew. However, it also symbolized a moral dilemma, a confrontation with her sense of right and wrong. As night fell once more, Emily lay in bed, clutching the ticket tightly in her hand, the enormity of her actions weighing heavily on her conscience. The following morning, Emily awoke with a sense of resolve. She could no longer bear the oppressive atmosphere of the Anderson mansion, the constant demeaning treatment, and the ceaseless fear of discovery. She decided to act. The lottery ticket was her ticket to freedom, her chance to carve out a life on her terms. With a mix of trepidation and excitement, she planned her escape, envisioning a future where she was no longer subjugated but empowered. Her opportunity came sooner than expected. During a particularly tumultuous argument between Mr. and Mrs. Anderson, Emily slipped away unnoticed. She hurried to the nearest town, her heart racing with a mixture of fear and exhilaration. With the ticket clutched tightly in her hand, she checked the numbers and felt a rush of disbelief and euphoria as she realized she held the winning ticket. The weight of her past seemed to lift, replaced by the exhilarating promise of a new beginning. Emily's journey from a humiliated maid to a lottery winner and an empowered woman was one of profound transformation. The money provided her with the means to escape, but it was her newfound strength and determination that truly set her free. She left behind the Anderson mansion and the life of servitude, stepping into a future she would shape with her own hands. With each step she took, Emily felt the scars of her past healing, replaced by the unshakable resolve to live a life of dignity, respect, and fulfillment. That night, confined within the four walls of her modest room, Emily turned on her small, flickering television. As the announcer began to read the winning lottery numbers, she felt a surge of disbelief wash over her. The numbers on the screen matched those on the ticket she had hidden away. In her hands lay a fortune capable of transforming lives. Initially, she felt a rush of euphoria. but it quickly gave way to a tempest of conflicting emotions. Guilt gnawed at her conscience, fear tightened its grip on her heart, and hope flickered like a fragile flame. What path should she take now? Should she return the ticket and continue her life of servitude, or seize this unexpected opportunity, regardless of the moral cost? That night, Emily placed the ticket beneath her pillow, the symbol of her newfound dilemma weighing heavily on her mind. Her sleep was restless, haunted by dreams of possible futures and nightmares of discovery and retribution. Destiny had presented her with a chance, but the moral implications were profound and unsettling. When dawn broke, Emily awoke with dark circles under her eyes and a heart torn in two. Her day off provided a rare respite, and she decided to visit her brother in the modest apartment they shared. Seeing him, so frail and small for his 18 years, stirred something deep within her. The doctor mentioned a new treatment, he said, his eyes alight with a rare glimmer of hope. But it's prohibitively expensive, Emily. We could never afford it in 100 years. Each word felt like a dagger to her heart, intensifying her internal struggle. The ticket in her pocket seemed to grow heavier with each passing second. It held the power to change her brother's life, to give him the opportunity for the treatment he so desperately needed, but at the potential cost of her integrity and moral standing. As the day progressed, Emily found herself torn between two worlds. One path promised a life of continued servitude, where integrity remained intact but dreams remained unfulfilled. The other path was paved with hope and potential, a chance to give her brother the life-saving treatment he needed, but it was tainted by the shadow of her actions. The weight of the decision bore down on her, leaving her in a state of agonizing indecision. The following morning, Emily made her way to a quiet park, seeking solace and clarity amidst the gentle rustling of leaves and the chirping of birds. She sat on a weathered bench, the lottery ticket clutched tightly in her hands. The world seemed to pause around her as she contemplated her next move. Memories of the Andersons' cruelty surfaced, reminding her of the years of humiliation and hardship. She thought of her brother, his bright eyes, and the hope that flickered within them despite his frail condition. Finally, with a deep breath, Emily made a decision. She could no longer ignore the desperation in her brother's eyes or the potential for a better future. She resolved to use the lottery winnings to secure the treatment for her brother. Her hands shook as she imagined the relief and joy that would follow, but a part of her mourned the loss of her moral innocence. Emily's journey had transformed from one of mere survival to a complex moral odyssey. She was no longer the helpless maid, but a woman grappling with the weight of her choices and the consequences they would bring. The path she chose was fraught with uncertainty and moral ambiguity, but it was driven by a fierce love and a determination to create a better life for her brother. As Emily returned to the apartment that evening, she felt a mixture of apprehension and resolve. She knew the road ahead would be challenging, and the burden of her decision would be a heavy one to carry. But she also knew that she could not turn back. The lottery ticket had become more than just a piece of paper. It was a symbol of hope, sacrifice, and the profound complexity of human morality. Emily's story was far from over, and the choices she made would define the rest of her life. Back at the Anderson mansion, the atmosphere had grown unbearably toxic. Mrs. Anderson, consumed by the loss of her precious lottery ticket, had become even more vicious and cruel. Her piercing shouts echoed through the halls, spreading a wave of fear and tension. She blamed everyone in sight for her misfortune, her accusations becoming more frequent and more hostile. Emily went about her duties in silence, each harsh insult fueling the fire of her determination. She observed Mr. Anderson, once a figure of authority, now reduced to a shadow of his former self, burdened by mounting debts and his wife's relentless fury. His mutterings about impending bankruptcy and ruin filled the air with a sense of impending doom. In a fleeting moment of weakness, Emily nearly confessed. The truth was right there on the tip of her tongue, ready to spill out and unburden her conscience. But just as she was about to speak, Mrs. Anderson slapped her across the face, accusing her once again of being a thief. "You're nothing but a thief and an ingrate. You should be grateful we even give you work," she spat, her words dripping with venom. Something irrevocably broke inside Emily at that moment. Any remaining compassion she had for the Andersons was replaced by an unwavering resolution. This wasn't just about her anymore, it was about every single moment of humiliation, every injustice she had endured. That night, under the serene light of the moon, Emily gazed at the lottery ticket, her mind made up. She would no longer play the role of the victim. The money would be hers, and with it, the freedom and dignity she so desperately craved. Whatever the consequences, she would face them head-on, her head held high. Fate had placed this opportunity in her hands, and she was determined not to let it slip away. For the first time in years, Emily fell asleep with a smile on her lips, dreaming of a bright and hopeful future for herself and her brother. The unexpected arrival of Grace, the Andersons' daughter, brought a sudden shift in the mansion's tense atmosphere. Recently graduated from college abroad, Grace seemed to carry with her a breath of fresh air. Her keen eye quickly noticed the cracks in the family's facade that everyone else had grown used to ignoring. Emily watched cautiously as Grace moved through the house, her presence a stark contrast to the cold, oppressive environment cultivated by her parents. Grace's demeanor was different. She exuded a kind of warmth and kindness that Emily wasn't accustomed to receiving from the Anderson family. Grace's arrival created a ripple of change. She asked Emily about her well-being, a simple act of kindness that felt foreign and surreal. There was a gentleness in her eyes, a genuine concern that touched Emily's weary heart. Grace's curiosity about the household's inner workings and her subtle but clear disapproval of her mother's harsh treatment of the staff did not go unnoticed. One evening, as Emily was cleaning the living room, Grace approached her. "Emily, you seem troubled. Is everything all right?" she asked softly. Emily hesitated, her instincts warning her to stay silent, but something about Grace's sincere gaze made her open up, if only a little. "I'm fine, Miss Grace." "Just tired," Emily replied, trying to mask the turmoil within her. Grace nodded, but Emily could tell she wasn't convinced. "If you ever need to talk, I'm here," Grace offered gently before walking away, leaving Emily standing there, conflicted and deeply moved. As the days passed, Grace's presence continued to bring small but significant changes. She insisted on fair treatment of the staff and even managed to temper some of her mother's worst outbursts. Emily found herself in a strange new world where she felt valued and seen, even if just a little. However, the stolen lottery ticket remained a constant weight in her pocket, a reminder of the secret she carried and the choices she still had to make. One evening, Grace caught Emily staring out of the window, lost in thought. "You have dreams, don't you, Emily?" she asked, her voice gentle. Emily turned to her, surprised. "Dreams, Miss Grace," she echoed, unsure how to respond. Grace smiled. "Yes, dreams, aspirations. A future beyond this place." Emily's eyes welled up with unexpected tears. "I do, Miss Grace. I dream of a life where my brother and I can be free, where we can live with dignity and hope." Grace reached out and gently squeezed Emily's hand. "Then chase those dreams, Emily. Don't let anyone or anything hold you back." Emily nodded, a newfound determination taking root in her heart. The time to act was drawing near, and with Grace's words echoing in her mind, Emily knew she had to seize her chance. The money from the lottery ticket would not only save her brother but also pave the way for a future where they could both thrive. It was time to break free from the chains of servitude and step into a new life filled with promise and possibility. "Is everything okay?" Emily Grace asked one day, her voice filled with genuine concern, catching the maid off guard. "You seem worried." Emily felt her throat tighten, her words trapped. For a fleeting moment, she considered spilling everything, seeking comfort in Grace's apparent understanding. But the bitter memories of past humiliations silenced her. Meanwhile, Mrs. Anderson, driven to desperation by the loss of her precious lottery ticket, made a drastic decision. Emily overheard her on the phone, hiring a private investigator to recover the missing ticket. Panic gripped Emily's heart. With trembling hands, she hid the ticket in what she hoped was a safe place, praying fervently that no one would discover it. Every sound and every glance became a potential threat. At night, when the mansion was cloaked in darkness, Emily would quietly move through the house, meticulously planning her escape. She researched ways to claim her prize without arousing suspicion, dreaming of a life free from the Andersons' oppressive grasp. Yet guilt and fear gnawed at her soul. She saw the worry etched in Grace's eyes, the deepening despair on Mr. Anderson's face, and felt the crushing weight of her secret. During one heated argument, the words debts, casino, and bankruptcy floated to Emily's ears, painting a grim picture of the Andersons' precarious situation. She realized that the ticket, her beacon of hope, could also be the key to the family's undoing. With her heart racing and her mind in turmoil, Emily grappled with the moral complexity of her situation. Had she gone too far to turn back? The lottery prize promised freedom, but the ethical cost increased with each passing day. Paranoia enveloped the Anderson mansion like a suffocating fog. Emily felt invisible eyes tracking her every move. The private investigator, a man with a sinister aura, prowled the house, his presence a silent yet palpable threat that sent chills down Emily's spine. One evening, as Emily dusted the ornate bookshelves in the study, Grace approached her again. "Emily, please, if something is wrong, you can tell me," she urged, her eyes searching Emily's face for answers. The maid hesitated, the urge to confide battling with her instinct for self-preservation. "I'm fine, Miss Grace." "Just a bit tired," Emily lied, forcing a smile. Grace looked unconvinced but didn't press further. That night, Emily lay awake, her thoughts a chaotic swirl of fear, guilt, and resolve. The lottery ticket, hidden beneath a loose floorboard, seemed to pulse with the enormity of its significance. It represented not just a chance at a better life, but a moral crossroads. Her actions could save her brother, but at the expense of her integrity and the Andersons' financial ruin. As days turned into weeks, the pressure intensified. The private investigator's presence was a constant reminder of the danger lurking just around the corner. Emily's every move was calculated, her every word measured. She lived in a perpetual state of heightened awareness, her senses finely tuned to any sign of discovery. One morning, the investigator cornered Emily in the hallway, his gaze piercing and cold. "Have you seen anything unusual, Emily? Any sign of the ticket?" he asked, his tone laced with suspicion. Emily's heart pounded in her chest, but she maintained her composure. "No, sir. I haven't seen anything," she replied, her voice steady. The investigator studied her for a moment longer before nodding curtly and walking away. Emily exhaled a shaky breath, the encounter leaving her even more determined to secure her escape. As the Andersons' financial woes deepened, their household became a battleground of accusations and blame. Emily watched as Grace tried to mediate, her kindness a stark contrast to her parents' venom. The young maid found herself growing more conflicted, torn between her desire for freedom and the empathy she felt for Grace. One evening, as the mansion settled into an uneasy silence, Emily made a decision. She would use the ticket, not just for her gain, but to help Grace. She couldn't ignore the bond they had begun to form, nor the compassion Grace had shown her. It was a risky move, but one she felt compelled to take. With a deep breath, Emily retrieved the ticket from its hiding place. She would cash it in, but she would ensure that a portion of the winnings went towards helping Grace and perhaps easing the family's financial burden. It was a compromise, a way to honor both her moral compass and her need for liberation. The following day, with a heart full of resolve, Emily set her plan into motion. She carefully executed her escape, leaving behind a letter for Grace, explaining her actions and expressing her hope for a better future for them both. As she stepped out of the Anderson mansion for the last time, the weight of the past lifted from her shoulders. She was ready to embrace a new chapter, one where she could live with dignity, hope, and the promise of a brighter tomorrow. For the first time in years, Emily felt truly free. The road ahead was uncertain, but it was hers to travel, and she was determined to make the most of every step. In a moment of profound weakness, Emily visited her brother in the hospital. Seeing him hooked up to a maze of machines, his frail body battling for every breath nearly shattered her resolve. Words crowded in her throat, the confession almost bursting forth. But the flicker of hope in her brother's eyes silenced her. This treatment was his only lifeline, and she possessed the means to ensure it. Back at the mansion, tensions had reached a breaking point. Mrs. Anderson, her once sharp demeanor now marred by pronounced dark circles and trembling hands, summoned the entire staff. Her voice, usually filled with unchallenged authority, now quivered with a mix of desperation and fury. "I know one of you has my ticket," she declared, her eyes darting over the assembled, frightened faces. "If the culprit doesn't confess right now, I'll report you all for theft." The silence that followed was suffocating. Emily's heart pounded so loudly that she was certain everyone could hear it. Her eyes briefly met Grace's, who gazed back with a blend of suspicion and concern. That night, locked in her small room, Emily packed a suitcase with trembling hands. The idea of fleeing, vanishing with the ticket, had never seemed so tempting. She could escape to a new life, free from the relentless oppression and fear that had marked her existence. But as she contemplated this possibility, her brother's face filled her mind. What would happen to him if she disappeared? And what about the satisfaction of seeing Mrs. Anderson's reaction when she discovered her worthless maid had millions? The thought of abandoning her brother weighed heavily on her conscience. She couldn't bear the idea of him struggling alone in the hospital, his hope shattered. And deep down, a part of her longed for the vindication, the moment Mrs. Anderson realized the maid she had belittled held the power to change everything. Emily's thoughts whirled as she packed, her mind a battleground of conflicting emotions. She considered the logistics of her escape and the steps she would need to take to cash the ticket without raising suspicion. She imagined the freedom, the relief, and the opportunities that lay ahead. But she also saw the faces of those she would leave behind: Grace, who had shown her kindness, and her brother, whose life depended on her. The mansion's oppressive silence amplified her inner turmoil. Each creak of the floorboards, each whisper of the wind outside her window, felt like a reminder of the heavy burden she carried. She knew that if she stayed, she risked everything. The private investigator was closing in, and it was only a matter of time before the truth was uncovered. Yet the thought of fleeing without resolving the situation left a sour taste in her mouth. As dawn approached, Emily made a decision. She would confront Mrs. Anderson, but not in the way anyone would expect. She would take control of her destiny and negotiate from a position of strength. She would reveal the ticket's existence, but on her terms. With the resolve of someone who had nothing left to lose, she finalized her plan. When the household awoke, Emily waited for the right moment. She found Mrs. Anderson alone in the study, her eyes red from sleepless nights and relentless worry. "Mrs. Anderson," Emily began, her voice steady despite the storm of emotions within her, "I need to speak with you." Mrs. Anderson looked up, surprise and suspicion flickering in her eyes. "What is it, Emily?" she snapped, though her voice lacked its usual bite. "I know where your ticket is," Emily said, meeting her gaze head-on. The shock on Mrs. Anderson's face was almost satisfying. "But I have conditions." Mrs. Anderson's eyes narrowed, her lips pressing into a thin line. Conditions, she echoed, incredulous. Yes, Emily replied firmly. First, you'll provide my brother with the medical treatment he needs. Second, you'll grant me my freedom and a sum of money sufficient to start a new life. For a moment, Mrs. Anderson seemed ready to explode. But then she saw the unyielding determination in Emily's eyes, and something shifted. The desperation that had driven her to such extremes now forced her to listen. And if I refuse, Mrs. Anderson challenged, though her voice wavered. Then you'll never see that ticket again, Emily said calmly, and you'll lose everything. There was a long, tense silence as Mrs. Anderson weighed her options. Finally, with a deep, shaky breath, she nodded. Fine, she said. I agree to your terms. Emily's heart leapt, but she maintained her composure. I'll need it in writing, she insisted. Mrs. Anderson scrawled out a quick agreement, her hand trembling. Once it was signed, Emily handed over the ticket. With the agreement in place, Emily felt a sense of liberation she had never known. She walked out of the mansion, her steps light, her heart full. Her brother would get the treatment he needed, and she would be free to build a new life, one filled with hope and possibility. Grace caught up with her as she reached the gate. Emily, are you leaving? She asked, her voice tinged with sadness. Emily turned to her, smiling. Yes, Grace. It's time for me to start a new chapter. Grace hugged her tightly. Thank you, she whispered. For everything. As Emily walked away, the sun rising behind her, she felt the weight of her past lift. She had faced her fears, stood up for herself, and secured a future for her brother. It was a new beginning, and for the first time in her life, Emily felt truly free. With her heart torn between the desire to escape and the need to face the consequences of her actions, Emily sat on the edge of her bed. The lottery ticket felt like a burning promise of freedom and a chain of guilt all at once. By dawn, her nerves were frayed, but her resolve was unbreakable. She had made her decision. She would escape that very night with the winning ticket. With cautious movements, she packed the essentials into a small suitcase and hid it under her bed. Throughout the day, Emily performed her tasks with a feigned calmness, though her heart pounded with each suspicious glance from the Andersons. The mansion had become a minefield of tensions and veiled accusations. When the clock struck 11, Emily slipped out of her room, suitcase in hand, and the prize ticket securely hidden in her bra. The silence of the night amplified her fears, but she pressed on, determined to seize her chance at freedom. As Emily made her way through the darkened mansion, she began to unravel the complex web of lies and corruption surrounding the Andersons. The private investigator, sensing the ship sinking, made a last desperate move. He approached Emily and Grace with an offer of blackmail. He had gathered incriminating information about both the Andersons and the staff, and he was willing to sell it to the highest bidder. Caught off guard, Emily and Grace found themselves at a moral crossroads. The investigator's threat loomed over them like a dark cloud, forcing them to consider their next move carefully. Should they pay to silence him and protect their secrets, or stand firm in their quest for truth, regardless of the cost? Emily's mind raced as she weighed the options. The idea of paying off the investigator felt like surrendering to the same corruption that had oppressed her for so long. Yet the alternative, exposing the truth and facing the potential fallout, was equally daunting. Grace, who had initially been a beacon of hope and kindness, now found herself entangled in the same web of deceit. Emily, we can't let him get away with this, Grace whispered, her eyes filled with determination. We have to stand up for what's right. Emily nodded, though her heart was heavy with fear. But if we expose him, what happens to us? What happens to my brother? Grace took a deep breath, her resolve unwavering. We fight back. We don't let fear control us. As the night wore on, Emily and Grace devised a plan to confront the investigator. They gathered all the evidence they could find, determined to turn the tables on him. The mansion, once a place of oppression, now became a battleground for justice and redemption. The following evening, Emily and Grace met the investigator in a secluded corner of the estate. He smirked, confident in his leverage over them. "Ladies, have you made your decision?" Grace stepped forward, her voice steady. "Yes, we have. We've gathered evidence of your blackmail attempts, and we're prepared to go to the authorities." The investigator's smirk faltered. "You think you can scare me? I have enough dirt on both of you to ruin your lives." Emily, feeling a surge of courage, stepped beside Grace. "And we have enough to bring you down. The choice is yours." For a tense moment, the air crackled with uncertainty. Then, the investigator's confidence crumbled. He realized he had underestimated their resolve. "Fine," he spat, "I'll leave. But don't think this is over." As he slinked away into the night, Emily and Grace felt a weight lift from their shoulders. They had faced their fears and stood up to the corruption that had plagued their lives. The path ahead was still uncertain, but they were no longer powerless. With the investigator gone, Emily finally felt free to execute her plan. She shared a heartfelt goodbye with Grace, who promised to ensure her brother received the treatment he needed. As Emily walked away from the mansion for the last time, the first rays of dawn illuminated her path. The future was still unknown, but for the first time in years, she felt hopeful. Emily's journey had transformed her from a humiliated maid to a courageous woman ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. She had discovered strength she never knew she had and forged an unbreakable bond with Grace. Together, they had navigated the murky waters of morality and emerged victorious. As Emily boarded a bus to a new town, she clutched the lottery ticket close to her heart. It symbolized not just a chance at a better life, but the hard-won freedom and integrity she had fought for. The road ahead was filled with promise and possibility, and Emily was ready to embrace it with open arms. Emily, once a victim, now walked a precarious line between justice and vengeance. One night, while sifting through documents in Grace's apartment, her phone rang. It was her brother, his voice laden with disappointment. "Emily, what have you become?" This wasn't the dream we had. His words struck Emily like a punch in the gut. In her pursuit of justice, she had lost sight of what truly mattered. Seeing the anguish in Emily's eyes, Grace gently took her hand. "We're still in time to do the right thing," she said softly. "But we have to be brave." With the weight of their decisions pressing heavily on them, Emily and Grace prepared for their next move, fully aware that each step brought them closer to a point of no return. The media exploded with revelations about the lottery ticket's origins. An investigative journalist uncovered that the winning ticket had been purchased with money embezzled from a charity fund by the Andersons. This bombshell shook the foundations of their case and threatened to invalidate the prize entirely. Emily and the Andersons, forced into an uncomfortable truce, found themselves united by the need to protect the prize that now hung by a thread. The legal teams of both parties worked frantically to devise a solution that would prevent the total forfeiture of the money. As the legal battle intensified, Emily's brother suffered a severe relapse. Doctors warned that without immediate and costly intervention, his condition could become irreversible. Emily found herself torn between continuing the fight for the prize and addressing the urgent need to help her brother. Amid this chaos, Grace made a startling discovery. She found documents implicating her father in an even larger corruption scheme. Heartbroken but resolute, she approached Emily with the evidence. "This could sink my family forever," Grace said, tears glistening in her eyes. "But it's the right thing to do. We have to expose it." Emily looked at the documents, her mind racing. The stakes had never been higher. She understood the gravity of Grace's decision and the immense courage it took to confront her own family. Grace. Emily began, her voice steady. "We can't let them get away with this, but we need to be smart about how we handle it." Together, they formulated a plan. They decided to go public with the information, but first, they would ensure Emily's brother received the medical treatment he desperately needed. Emily contacted the hospital, arranging for an anonymous donor to cover the costs. The relief in her brother's voice when he learned of the treatment was a balm to Emily's tormented soul. The next day, Emily and Grace met with the investigative journalist who had initially uncovered the embezzlement. They handed over the new evidence, detailing the full extent of the Andersons' corruption. The journalist, shocked by the breadth of the scandal, promised to publish the story with the urgency it deserved. As the article went live, the fallout was immediate. The Andersons were thrust into the spotlight, and their reputation was shattered. The charity fund was restored with the lottery winnings, ensuring that the money would benefit those in need. Emily, once consumed by a desire for vengeance, found solace in knowing that justice had been served. In the aftermath, Emily and Grace stood side by side, their bond stronger than ever. They had faced immense challenges and made difficult choices, but they had emerged victorious. Emily's brother, now receiving the care he needed, expressed his gratitude and pride in her strength and integrity. As the dust settled, Emily and Grace looked toward the future. They knew that the road ahead would not be easy, but they were ready to face it together. Emily's journey had transformed her from a victim into a beacon of resilience and justice. With Grace by her side, she felt a renewed sense of purpose and hope. For the first time in a long while, Emily allowed herself to dream. She dreamed of a life where she and her brother could live free from fear and oppression. She dreamed of using her experiences to help others, to fight for those who could not fight for themselves. And as she walked away from the Anderson mansion, leaving behind a chapter filled with pain and triumph, she felt a profound sense of liberation. Emily had not only reclaimed her life, but had also found a new path, one guided by courage, compassion, and an unyielding commitment to justice. The future was uncertain, but it was hers to shape, and she was ready to embrace it with open arms. Emily, physically and emotionally exhausted, faced the most difficult decision of her life: use the information to secure the prize and save her brother, or reveal the truth and risk everything in the name of justice. Mr. Anderson, suspecting that something was amiss, approached Emily with a desperate offer: withdraw all accusations and cede the prize in exchange for your silence about the discoveries. As Emily pondered the offer, she received a call from the hospital. Her brother's condition had critically worsened. She needed to make a decision quickly. With time running out and pressures mounting from all sides, Emily realized that whatever decision she made would irrevocably change the course of many lives, including her own. The question was no longer just about money or justice, but about what kind of person she would choose to be at this crucial moment. Fate, with its usual sense of irony, decided to intervene at the most critical moment. As Emily wrestled with Mr. Anderson's offer and the urgency of her brother's condition, Mrs. Anderson was involved in a devastating car accident. The news spread like wildfire through the mansion. Mr. Anderson, pale and trembling, received the call from the hospital. His wife was in critical condition, fighting for her life in the same hospital where Emily's brother was being treated. When Emily learned of the accident, she felt a confusing mix of emotions. On one hand, years of mistreatment and humiliation weighed on her heart. On the other, an unexpected feeling of compassion arose. Life, in all its fragility, presented itself before her in a way she had never contemplated before. Emily stood frozen in the mansion's grand hallway, her mind a whirlwind of conflicting thoughts. The enormity of the situation pressed down on her, making it difficult to breathe. She had to choose between securing the means to save her brother or standing up for what was right, potentially losing everything in the process. The image of her brother, frail and fighting for his life, tugged at her heartstrings, while the memory of Mrs. Anderson's cruelty battled with her newfound compassion. Taking a deep breath, Emily knew she couldn't make this decision alone. She sought out Grace, who had been a steadfast ally through the chaos. She found her in the garden, the only place that seemed untouched by the turmoil inside the house. Grace looked up as Emily approached, her expression a mixture of concern and exhaustion. "Grace, I need your help," Emily said, her voice trembling. She explained Mr. Anderson's offer and the dire situation at the hospital. Grace listened intently, her face growing more serious with each word. "We can't let them get away with this," Grace said firmly. "But I understand your brother's situation. We need to find a way to do both." Emily felt a surge of gratitude for Grace's support. Together, they devised a plan. They would confront Mr. Anderson with a counteroffer. He would provide the necessary funds for Emily's brother's treatment immediately, and in return, they would hold off on revealing the new evidence for a short period. This would give them time to prepare for a legal battle without compromising Emily's brother's health. With their plan in place, Emily and Grace approached Mr. Anderson. The man looked worn and desperate, the weight of his wife's condition and his crumbling empire evident in his demeanor. "Mr. Anderson," Emily began, her voice steady but firm, "we have a counteroffer. You will provide the funds for my brother's treatment immediately. In exchange, we will delay revealing the new evidence for a short period, giving you time to address your family's situation. After that, the truth will come out, and we will proceed with the legal process." Mr. Anderson stared at them, his eyes flickering with a mix of fear and hope. "And if I agree, you won't expose the evidence right away?" Emily nodded. "Yes, but you must act quickly. My brother's condition is critical." After a tense moment, Mr. Anderson agreed, seeing no other viable option. Arrangements were made, and within hours, the funds were transferred to the hospital. Emily's brother began receiving the urgent care he needed, and the immediate danger to his life was averted. As the days passed, Emily and Grace worked tirelessly to prepare their case. The mansion remained a tense environment, but a fragile truce held as everyone focused on the immediate crisis at hand. Emily found herself visiting the hospital frequently, not only to check on her brother but also to observe Mrs. Anderson's condition. Despite everything, she couldn't help but feel a pang of empathy for the woman fighting for her life. One evening, as Emily sat by her brother's bedside, she received an unexpected visitor. Mr. Anderson entered the room, looking more haggard than ever. He took a seat, his gaze fixed on the floor. "I wanted to thank you," he said quietly, "for giving us this time, for helping your brother, and for not letting my wife die without a chance." Emily looked at him, seeing the broken man behind the facade of power and cruelty. "Mr. Anderson, this isn't over. We will seek justice, but I'm not a monster, and neither is Grace. We will do what's right." Mr. Anderson nodded, tears welling up in his eyes. "I understand, and I'm ready to face the consequences." With that, he left, leaving Emily to reflect on the twists and turns of her journey. She had chosen a path of compassion tempered with justice, and while it was fraught with challenges, it felt right. In the weeks that followed, the Andersons' corruption was exposed and the charity fund was restored. Emily's brother continued to improve, and the bond between Emily and Grace grew stronger. Together, they faced legal battles and public scrutiny, emerging as symbols of resilience and integrity. Emily's life had been irrevocably changed, but she had found a way to balance her need for justice with the compassion that defined her true character. She had saved her brother, exposed corruption, and forged a future filled with hope and purpose. As she walked away from the Anderson mansion for the last time, she knew that she was no longer a victim but a beacon of strength and courage, ready to face whatever came next. Grace, devastated by the news, approached Emily with pleading eyes. "I know I have no right to ask you for anything," she said between sobs, "but please help us. The prize money could save my mother." The moral dilemma Emily faced reached epic proportions. She found herself in the position of deciding over the life of the woman who had caused her so much pain. The irony was not lost on her. Now she had the power to be either cruel or compassionate. In the hospital, Emily walked through the sterile halls, her mind a whirlwind of thoughts. In one room, her brother struggled to survive. In another, Mrs. Anderson fought for her life. Two seemingly opposite lives are now united by the fragility of human existence. The medical team approached Emily, needing an immediate decision about her brother's treatment. At the same time, the Andersons' lawyer called, urging a response to Mr. Anderson's offer. In this crucial moment, Emily realized that her decision would not only determine the fate of the money but also define who she was as a human being. Would she choose vengeance or compassion, justice or mercy? With her heart pounding and hands trembling, Emily prepared to make a decision that would change the course of multiple lives, including her own. The weight of the world seemed to rest on her shoulders as she contemplated the true meaning of redemption and forgiveness. She thought about her brother, about Grace's desperate plea, and even about the suffering Mrs. Anderson, a woman who, despite her cruelty, was now helpless and vulnerable. In an act that surprised everyone, including herself, Emily made a decision no one expected. She gathered her courage and approached the waiting group of doctors, lawyers, and family members. With a firm voice, yet laden with emotion, she announced her decision. "I will use part of the prize money to pay for the treatment of both my brother and Mrs. Anderson," she said, her eyes welling with tears but her voice unwavering. "This money should not just be about saving one life while another suffers. It's about doing the right thing." Gasps of surprise and relief filled the room. Mr. Anderson, his eyes filled with gratitude and remorse, stepped forward. "Thank you, Emily," he said, his voice breaking. "I never expected. Thank you." Emily nodded, feeling the immense burden lift from her shoulders. The doctors immediately began coordinating the treatments, ensuring that both patients received the care they needed. Grace hugged Emily tightly, her sobs now mixed with tears of gratitude. "You did the right thing, Emily. You're an incredible person." As the days passed, Emily's brother showed signs of improvement. The treatments began to work, and his strength slowly returned. Mrs. Anderson's condition also stabilized, and she began her long road to recovery. The Anderson family, now facing the consequences of their actions, started to rebuild their lives with a newfound sense of humility and gratitude. Emily's decision to act with compassion rather than vengeance transformed her. She had faced an unimaginable moral test and emerged with her integrity and humanity intact. She found a new sense of purpose in helping others, using her experiences to advocate for justice and kindness in a world that often lacked both. Grace and Emily remained close friends, their bond strengthened by the trials they had faced together. The Anderson family, forever changed by the events, worked to make amends and live more honorable lives. Emily's story became a beacon of hope and resilience, inspiring others to choose compassion over cruelty, even in the most challenging of circumstances. As Emily continued to walk the path of her new life, she carried with her the lessons of forgiveness, redemption, and the incredible power of doing what is right. The future was still uncertain, but she faced it with an open heart, ready to embrace whatever came next. Emily had not only saved her brother and Mrs. Anderson, but had also saved herself, finding strength and peace in the choice to be compassionate and just. "We can't control what happens to us," Emily said, looking at Grace and Mr. Anderson, "but we can choose how we respond." The news of Emily's decision spread quickly throughout the hospital and beyond. Mr. Anderson, overwhelmed by the unexpected compassion, broke down in a chair, silent tears streaming down his aged face. Grace hugged Emily, murmuring tearful thanks. For a moment, the barriers of class and resentment dissolved, leaving only two women united by adversity and hope. However, Emily's decision did not come without conditions. With the help of her lawyers, she drafted an agreement. In exchange for her assistance, she demanded a full confession from the Andersons about their illegal activities and fair compensation for all the employees who had been exploited over the years. Mr. Anderson, seeing an opportunity for redemption, agreed to the terms. With a broken voice, he began to reveal years of fraud, tax evasion, and labor abuses. Each word seemed to lift a weight off his shoulders, while Grace listened, horrified but determined to face the family truth. Meanwhile, the doctors worked frantically to save Mrs. Anderson and improve Emily's brother's condition. A subtle shift began to manifest in the dynamics between all involved. Vengeance and resentment slowly gave way to a deeper understanding of human frailty and the possibility of change. Emily, observing how her decision triggered a series of events she never could have imagined, realized that the true prize was not the money but the opportunity to break the cycle of hate and resentment. The confession was detailed and damning. Mr. Anderson held nothing back, his voice quivering as he recounted each misdeed. The room was heavy with silence, only broken by Grace's occasional gasps and the steady scribbling of the lawyers taking notes. When he finished, the room remained still, the gravity of his revelations settling in. Emily felt a strange mix of relief and sorrow. She had forced the truth into the light, and in doing so, had set the stage for healing. The legal repercussions would be significant, but so would the opportunity for real change. Mr. Anderson's confession was made public, sparking outrage and a flurry of legal actions. The Andersons' wealth was directed towards reparations, ensuring that those who had suffered under their exploitation received compensation. The hospital, once a place of dread and despair for Emily, became a symbol of transformation. As Mrs. Anderson slowly recovered, she began to show signs of genuine remorse. Her once cold demeanor softened, and she started to treat the hospital staff with newfound respect. Emily's brother, receiving the critical treatment he needed, began to regain his strength. His recovery was slow but steady, bringing hope back into Emily's life. The relationship between Emily and Grace deepened. They spent many hours talking and sharing their fears and dreams. Grace was determined to make amends for her family's past, using her influence to advocate for justice and fairness. Emily, inspired by Grace's dedication, found a renewed sense of purpose. Together, they began working on initiatives to support exploited workers and promote ethical business practices. As weeks turned into months, the initial shock of the revelations gave way to a broader movement for change. The Andersons' case became a catalyst for others to come forward, exposing similar abuses in different industries. Emily's decision to demand justice resonated far beyond the confines of the hospital, sparking a wave of accountability and reform. Through it all, Emily remained a beacon of resilience and compassion. She had faced incredible adversity and emerged stronger, using her experience to drive positive change. The true prize, she realized, was not just the lottery money but the impact she had on the lives around her. She had turned her suffering into a force for good, breaking the cycle of hatred and building a legacy of hope. Emily's story spread, inspiring many to stand up against injustice and to choose compassion over vengeance. Her journey was a testament to the power of forgiveness and the transformative potential of doing what is right, even in the face of overwhelming odds. As she walked through the halls of the hospital, no longer burdened by her past, Emily felt a profound sense of peace. She had found her true purpose, and with Grace by her side, she was ready to face whatever the future held. That night, as she watched over her brother's bedside, Emily reflected on the unexpected turn her life had taken. The path to healing and justice would be long and difficult, but for the first time in a long time, she felt a spark of genuine hope. The days following Emily's agreement were a whirlwind of emotions and revelations. While Mrs. Anderson fought for her life in intensive care, Mr. Anderson, consumed by guilt and remorse, began to unravel the complex web of lies and corruption he had woven over the years. In a hospital conference room temporarily converted into an improvised command center, Emily, Grace, and a team of lawyers listened intently to Mr. Anderson's every confession. Each revelation was more shocking than the last bribery of officials, large-scale tax evasion, and even the terrible truth about the charity fund's origin. The lottery ticket Mr. Anderson confessed with a broken voice was bought with money meant for an orphanage. I thought I could return it multiplied if I won. Grace, horrified by her father's actions, struggled to reconcile the man she thought she knew with the one now being revealed. Emily, for her part, felt a mix of vindication and sorrow. The justice she had long sought was coming, but at an emotional cost she hadn't anticipated. Meanwhile, in another part of the hospital, Emily's brother showed signs of improvement thanks to the intensive treatment. Every small progress was a testament to the transformative power of the compassion Emily had shown. As Mr. Anderson continued his confessions, the atmosphere in the room grew heavier. The scale of his wrongdoing was immense, and the consequences were far-reaching. The lawyers worked tirelessly, piecing together the legal implications of each revelation and preparing for the inevitable court battles. Emily and Grace supported each other, their bond growing stronger as they navigated the moral complexities of their situation. Emily found herself visiting her brother frequently, drawing strength from his gradual recovery. His progress reminded her of why she had made the difficult choices she did. The sight of him growing stronger each day filled her with a renewed sense of purpose. She had chosen the path of compassion and justice, and it was paying off in ways she had never imagined. The hospital became a place of transformation for everyone involved. Mrs. Anderson, though still critical, showed signs of response. The medical team worked around the clock, their dedication a stark contrast to the Andersons' past corruption. The once oppressive atmosphere began to change, infused with a sense of hope and redemption. One evening, as Emily sat beside her brother, he looked up at her with clear eyes. "Emily, I'm getting better, aren't I?" he asked, his voice weak but hopeful. "Yes, you are," she replied, smiling through her tears. "You're getting stronger every day." His hand squeezed hers weakly. "And you, Emily, are you okay?" Emily paused, reflecting on his question. "I am," she said finally. "For the first time in a long time, I am." As the legal proceedings advanced, the public learned of the Andersons' misdeeds. The media frenzy was intense, but it also brought attention to the plight of the exploited workers and the misused charity funds. Donations poured in to support the orphanage, and other charities stepped forward to help rectify the injustices committed by the Andersons. Grace decided to speak out publicly, denouncing her family's actions and pledging to make amends. Her bravery inspired many, and she became a symbol of accountability and change. Emily stood by her side during press conferences and public appearances, their unity a powerful testament to the possibility of redemption. In the months that followed, the Anderson mansion was sold, and the proceeds were used to fund various charitable initiatives. The employees who had been exploited received compensation, and many of them found new opportunities thanks to the public's outpouring of support. Emily and Grace continued their advocacy work, determined to use their experiences to fight for justice and ethical practices in business. Emily's brother eventually made a full recovery, his health restored by the critical care he received. He and Emily moved into a modest but comfortable home, grateful for the second chance they had been given. Emily found fulfillment in her new role as an advocate and community organizer, her life transformed by the journey she had undertaken. One day, as Emily and Grace sat in a park, watching the sunset, Grace turned to her friend. Do you ever regret it? Choosing compassion over vengeance? Emily shook her head, her gaze steady. No, it was the hardest decision I've ever made, but it was the right one. We've all been given a chance to change, to make things right. That's worth more than any prize. Grace smiled, her eyes filled with admiration. You've taught me so much, Emily. I'm proud to stand with you. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Emily felt a deep sense of peace. Her journey had been fraught with challenges, but she had emerged stronger, guided by compassion and justice. The future was uncertain, but she was ready to face it, knowing that she had the strength and the support of those who believed in her. Emily had not only changed her own life, but had also inspired countless others to choose the path of integrity and hope. However, the situation was far from resolved. As Mr. Anderson's confessions came to light, new legal and ethical challenges arose. The lottery prize, now tainted by its questionable origin, became the center of a moral and legal debate. Emily found herself in the eye of a media and legal storm. Journalists camped outside the hospital, hungry for every fragment of information. Activist groups demanded that the money be returned to the affected charitable organizations. Amid this chaos, Emily received an anonymous note suggesting there were more secrets to uncover, secrets that could change everything again. With her heart racing, Emily realized that her journey to truth and justice was just beginning, and that each revelation brought new moral dilemmas and difficult decisions. The anonymity of the note didn't last long. The private investigator, feeling he was losing control of the situation, decided to play his last card. He showed up at the hospital, his face a mask of desperation and cunning. "I have evidence," he said quietly to Emily and Grace, "that could sink everyone or save them. It's up to you." Emily and Grace exchanged worried glances. The investigator showed them compromising photos of Mr. Anderson with high-ranking politicians and documents suggesting a corruption network far beyond what they had imagined. "What do you want?" Emily asked, her voice tense. "Immunity and a portion of the prize," he replied without hesitation. The investigator's proposal placed Emily and Grace in an even greater ethical dilemma. Revealing the full truth could bring justice to many, but it would also destroy lives and shake the foundations of society. Hiding it would make them complicit in the crimes they had sworn to expose. As they debated what to do, Emily's brother, now more lucid thanks to the treatment, surprised her with his perspective. "Emily," he said weakly, "remember why this all started. It wasn't for money or revenge, but for justice and dignified life." His words resonated deeply with Emily, reminding her of her core values. Grace, for her part, wrestled with family loyalty and her sense of justice. "If we expose everything," she reflected, "not only will my father fall, but so will many others. Do we have the right to decide that?" Emily, feeling the weight of the decision, turned to the private investigator. "We need time to think," she said. He nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation, and left them with the evidence. Emily and Grace retreated to a quiet room to discuss their options. "We have to consider the consequences," Grace said. "Exposing everything could lead to massive upheaval, but if we don't, we're no better than those who covered up these crimes in the first place." Emily sighed. "This isn't just about us anymore. It's about everyone affected by these crimes. We can't let fear guide our decisions." Grace nodded, her resolve hardening. "You're right. We have to do what's right, even if it's difficult." The next morning, Emily and Grace met with their legal team. They presented the new evidence and discussed the best course of action. "We need to approach this strategically," one of the lawyers said. "We can't just release everything at once. We need to build a case that will withstand scrutiny." With a plan in place, they decided to hold a press conference. Emily and Grace stood side by side, facing a barrage of cameras and reporters. "We have uncovered further evidence of corruption that goes beyond the Anderson family," Emily began. This is not just about one family's wrongdoing, but a systemic issue that affects many lives. We are committed to seeking justice and ensuring that those responsible are held accountable. The revelation sent shockwaves through the media and political circles. The public reaction was intense, with many supporting Emily and Grace's decision to expose the truth. The investigation expanded, bringing more individuals and organizations under scrutiny. As the legal process unfolded, Emily and Grace continued to advocate for the victims of the corruption. They worked tirelessly to ensure that the funds were properly allocated to the affected charities and that those who had been exploited received the justice they deserved. The road was long and fraught with challenges, but Emily and Grace remained steadfast in their commitment to justice. The private investigator, realizing the futility of his position, eventually cooperated fully with the authorities, providing invaluable information that helped dismantle the corruption network. Emily's brother continued to recover, his health improving steadily. Emily found solace in knowing that her choices had not only saved his life, but had also set in motion a series of events that would bring about significant change. Grace's relationship with her father became strained, but she remained dedicated to doing what was right. "I love my family," she confided to Emily one evening, "but I can't ignore the truth. We have to be better than those who came before us." In the end, Emily's journey was one of profound transformation. She had faced unimaginable moral dilemmas and emerged stronger, guided by her unwavering commitment to justice and compassion. The lottery prize, once a symbol of greed and corruption, had become a catalyst for change. As Emily walked through the hospital halls, she felt a deep sense of peace. She had not only fought for her brother and herself, but had also played a crucial role in uncovering a vast network of corruption. Her story inspired many to stand up against injustice, proving that one person's courage could indeed make a difference. With Grace by her side, Emily looked towards a future filled with hope and possibility. They had chosen the difficult path, but it was the right one. Together, they had broken the cycle of hate and resentment, paving the way for a brighter tomorrow. The tension in the room was palpable. The investigator waited impatiently, aware that his future hung by a thread. Emily, feeling the weight of the decision on her shoulders, closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, there was a new determination in her gaze. "We can't play judges," she said finally, "but we also can't be complicit in a cover-up. We'll hand over all the information to the proper authorities and let justice take its course." Her decision marked a turning point. The Anderson family, Emily and Grace, realized they were now united, not by blood or money, but by a shared quest for redemption and truth. The next morning, headlines in all the newspapers and newscasts screamed the news: Anderson scandal, domestic worker exposes corruption network. Emily's decision to reveal the full truth had unleashed an unprecedented media storm. Emily found herself suddenly at the center of a whirlwind. Journalists camped outside the hospital, eager to capture every detail of the story. Social media buzzed with debates about ethics, justice, and redemption. Amid the chaos, Emily's brother, now recovered thanks to the treatment, visited her in the hospital. His presence was a powerful reminder of why all this had begun. "I'm proud of you, sister," he said, hugging her tightly. "But are you sure this is what you want?" "The path you've chosen won't be easy," Emily, moved by her brother's support, felt her resolve strengthen. "It's the right thing to do," she replied. "I can't build a new life on lies and secrets." Meanwhile, Grace organized a press conference. The young heiress, determined to face the situation head-on, planned to make a public statement on behalf of her family. Moments before the press conference began, Emily received an anonymous call. The voice on the other end was grave and threatening. "If you speak, there will be consequences. Some secrets are better left buried." Emily's heart raced. The threat was clear, but so was her determination. With trembling hands, she told Grace about the call. "We can cancel the press conference," Grace suggested, concerned. "Your safety comes first." Emily shook her head. "No, Grace, this is bigger than us. We can't let fear silence us." As they approached the podium, Emily could feel the eyes of the world upon them. Grace stepped forward first, her voice steady but emotional. "Today we stand before you not as victims, but as people who believe in justice. My family has made grave mistakes, and we are committed to making amends. But this isn't just about us. It's about creating a future where such abuses can never happen again." Emily then took the microphone, her hands still trembling slightly. "I never imagined I would be here, speaking to all of you. This journey started because I wanted a better life for my brother and myself. Along the way, I realized that the truth is the most powerful weapon we have. We must face it, no matter how painful, to build a better future for everyone affected by these crimes." The crowd was silent, captivated by their words. The press conference ended with a powerful message of accountability and hope for change. The media coverage was relentless, but Emily and Grace stayed strong, knowing they had made the right decision. The authorities acted swiftly. Investigations expanded, revealing a network of corruption that reached far beyond the Anderson family. High-ranking officials and business leaders were implicated, leading to widespread reforms and the establishment of stricter regulations to prevent such abuses in the future. Emily and Grace found themselves becoming symbols of courage and integrity. They received numerous invitations to speak at events, share their story, and advocate for justice. Their bond grew stronger as they worked together to support those affected by corruption and exploitation. Despite the challenges and the constant media attention, Emily felt a profound sense of peace. She had stayed true to her values and made a difference in the world. Her brother's recovery continued, and he often expressed his admiration for her bravery. One evening, as they sat together in their new home, Emily's brother looked at her with pride. "You did it, Emily. You changed our lives and the lives of so many others." Emily smiled, her heart full. "We did it together, and there's still so much more we can do." In the months that followed, Emily and Grace launched a foundation dedicated to supporting whistleblowers, advocating for transparency, and providing aid to victims of corruption. Their work brought them into contact with countless individuals who had suffered in silence, and their efforts helped to bring about significant positive change. The threats never entirely disappeared, but Emily had learned to face them with courage. The foundation's success was a testament to the power of truth and the resilience of the human spirit. Emily had turned her ordeal into a force for good, and she knew that her journey was far from over. As she looked back on everything that had happened, Emily felt a deep sense of gratitude. She had faced incredible adversity and emerged stronger, with a renewed commitment to justice and compassion. The future was still uncertain, but she was ready to embrace it, knowing that she had the strength and the support of those who believed in her. With Grace by her side, Emily looked forward to a future filled with hope, determination, and the unwavering belief that together they could continue to make a difference. The path they had chosen was not easy, but it was the right one, and they were prepared to walk it with courage and integrity. Emily looked at Grace, then at the Anderson family who waited nervously in the hospital room. She thought of her brother, of the charity beneficiaries, of all the lives affected by this web of lies. "No," she finally said, her voice firm despite the fear. "We've come too far to turn back now. The truth must come out, no matter the consequences." With this decision, Emily and Grace prepared to face the press and the world. They knew their words would change lives, shake institutions, and possibly put them in danger, but they also knew it was the only path to true redemption. As they walked toward the press room, Emily felt the weight of responsibility on her shoulders. This was her chance to give a voice to all those who had been silenced by power and corruption. With each step, she reaffirmed her decision to face whatever came, no matter the personal cost. The press conference was an explosive event that rocked society to its core. Emily and Grace, standing side by side, revealed the full truth without reservation. They spoke of the corruption, the lottery ticket, and how a simple act of desperation had unraveled a web of lies that extended far beyond the Anderson family. As Emily detailed years of abuse and exploitation, Grace exposed her father's shady business dealings and the complicity of powerful figures. The press room was silent, save for the sound of cameras and the occasional gasp of surprise from the journalists. But the real bombshell dropped when Emily revealed the origin of the charity fund money. It came from illegal activities tied to a cartel. This revelation sent shockwaves through the media and put authorities on high alert. Within hours, the Anderson mansion was raided by police. Mr. Anderson, still in the hospital, was placed under custody. The investigation quickly expanded, implicating politicians, businessmen, and even judges. The fallout was swift and far-reaching. Major news outlets ran the story non-stop, and social media was ablaze with discussions and debates. Public opinion was sharply divided, with some praising Emily and Grace for their courage, while others criticized them for the potential chaos their revelations had unleashed. Amidst this storm, Emily found solace in the support of her brother and the steadfast friendship of Grace. The two women, who had started as unlikely allies, had become symbols of truth and integrity. Their decision to expose the corruption and lies, despite the personal risks, inspired many others to come forward with their own stories of injustice. In the days following the press conference, Emily and Grace were placed under police protection. The threats against them were real and numerous, but they remained undeterred. They continued to cooperate with the authorities, providing all the information they had uncovered. The scope of the corruption was staggering, and the investigation promised to be one of the largest in recent history. Despite the danger, Emily and Grace felt a sense of peace. They had done what was right, and the truth was out. The road ahead would be difficult, but they were ready to face it together. Their bond, forged in adversity, was unbreakable. As Mr. Anderson faced charges for his crimes, the Anderson family began the long process of trying to rebuild. Grace, determined to right the wrongs of her family's past, became a vocal advocate for transparency and accountability in business and government. She used her platform to push for reforms that would prevent such widespread corruption in the future. Emily, too, found a new purpose. She continued to fight for justice, working with various organizations to support victims of exploitation and corruption. Her story became a beacon of hope for those who had been silenced, showing that even the most entrenched systems of power could be challenged and changed. The charity funds were returned to their rightful causes, and the orphanage that had been deprived of its support began to thrive once more. Emily's brother, now healthy, joined her in her efforts, using his experience to help others who were facing similar struggles. The impact of Emily and Grace's actions rippled outwards, touching countless lives and leading to real, lasting change. They had faced their fears, stood up against immense odds, and emerged as champions of truth and justice. One evening, as Emily and Grace sat together, reflecting on all that had happened, Grace turned to her friend. "We did it, Emily. We made a difference." Emily smiled, her heart full. "Yes, we did. And this is just the beginning." Their journey had been long and fraught with challenges, but they had proven that courage and integrity could prevail even in the darkest of times. Together, they looked forward to a future where justice and truth would always find a way to shine through. Emily and the Anderson family found themselves in the eye of the storm. The threats against their lives became real and tangible. They had to be placed under police protection, and their lives changed forever. Amidst the chaos, Emily had an epiphany. Looking at Grace, who stood strong despite watching her world crumble, and thinking of her brother, whose life had been saved by this twist of fate, Emily understood the true value of life and family. All of this, Emily said to Grace in a moment of calm, started with an act of desperation and vengeance. But now I see it's about something much bigger than us. Grace nodded, taking Emily's hand. "It's about doing what's right, no matter the cost," she replied. With this realization, Emily made a decision that would surprise everyone. She called a meeting with the Anderson family, her brother, their lawyers, and representatives of the charity beneficiaries. She had a plan, one that could offer an opportunity for redemption for everyone, but it would require significant sacrifices. As she prepared to present her idea, Emily knew she was about to change not only her life but the lives of many others. The path to true justice and redemption was just beginning, and she was determined to walk it to the end, no matter the obstacles she faced. The hospital conference room became the setting for an unprecedented meeting. Emily, with a determination that surprised everyone, took the floor before the diverse and tense group gathered there. "What I'm about to propose," she began, her voice firm but laden with emotion, "may seem radical, even impossible, but I believe it's our only chance to set things right." Emily outlined her plan to create a foundation with all the lottery prize money and the recovered assets from the Andersons' illegal businesses. This foundation would be jointly managed by her, the Anderson family, and representatives of the original charity beneficiaries. "But this isn't just about money," she continued. "I propose that we all publicly confess our wrongdoings, accept the legal consequences, and dedicate our lives to making amends for the harm caused." The room fell silent as everyone absorbed the gravity of Emily's proposal. Mr. Anderson, still grappling with his guilt and remorse, was the first to speak. "Emily," he said, his voice shaking, "what you are suggesting, it's extraordinary, but it means facing the full weight of our actions." Grace, standing by her father, looked at him with a newfound strength. "Dad, we've caused so much pain. This is our chance to make things right. I'm with Emily. We need to do this." Emily's brother, seated beside her, added his voice. "I've seen what true compassion and courage can do. Emily saved my life not just with the money, but with her integrity. We all need to be part of this." The representatives from the charity beneficiaries, initially skeptical, began to see the potential for true change. One of them, an elderly woman who had dedicated her life to the orphanage, stood up. "If this foundation can prevent the kind of suffering we've seen and ensure that justice is served, then I support it." With a unanimous decision, the group agreed to Emily's plan. The next steps were set in motion, and the foundation was established with clear goals and a transparent governance structure. Emily, Grace, and the others worked tirelessly to ensure that the foundation would be a beacon of hope and integrity. Public confessions were made, with Emily, Grace, Mr. Anderson, and others admitting their roles in the corruption and pledging to make amends. The legal consequences were severe, but they faced them with a sense of purpose and commitment to change. The foundation's impact was immediate. The lottery prize and recovered assets were used to support the orphanage, healthcare initiatives, and educational programs. Transparency and accountability were the foundation's core principles, ensuring that the funds were used effectively and ethically. Emily and Grace, now partners in this mission, dedicated their lives to the foundation's work. They traveled, spoke at events, and advocated for systemic changes to prevent corruption and exploitation. Their journey inspired countless others to stand up for justice and make a difference. Through it all, Emily found a deep sense of fulfillment. She had turned her darkest moments into a force for good, and her relationship with her brother grew stronger each day. Grace, too, found a new sense of purpose, transforming her family's legacy from one of shame to one of redemption. The threats against them gradually subsided as their work gained recognition and support. The foundation became a model for ethical action and social responsibility, proving that even in the face of immense challenges, doing what is right can lead to profound change. One evening, as Emily and Grace reflected on their journey, Grace turned to her friend. "Emily, do you ever regret the choices we made?" Emily smiled, her heart full of gratitude. "No, Grace. Every step and every sacrifice was worth it. We've changed lives, including our own, and we've shown that redemption is possible, no matter how dark the path. Together, they looked toward a future filled with hope and possibility. The path to true justice and redemption had been long and arduous, but it was a path they were proud to have walked. Emily's journey had come full circle, and she had found her true calling to fight for justice, to stand up for what is right, and to inspire others to do the same. A stunned silence followed her words. The lawyers exchanged incredulous glances while the victims' representatives murmured among themselves. Mr. Anderson, pale but resolute, was the first to speak. "I've lived a life of lies and greed," he said. "I'm willing to face the consequences and do whatever it takes to make things right." Grace, tears in her eyes but holding her head high, supported the proposal. "I'll use my education and privileges to ensure this foundation truly makes a difference," she promised. Mrs. Anderson, still struggling with her amnesia but moved by the nobility of the plan, nodded silently, squeezing her husband's hand. The victims' representatives, though skeptical, saw in this proposal a unique opportunity for justice and real restitution. Emily's brother, now fully recovered, offered his unique perspective as a beneficiary. "This plan won't just change our lives," he declared with conviction, "but the lives of future generations." As the discussion continued, the tension in the room was palpable. Each person present wrestled with their inner demons, weighing the desire for self-preservation against the possibility of true redemption. Emily observed the reactions, aware that she was asking for enormous sacrifices from everyone, but she also knew this was the only path to true and lasting justice. As the debate progressed, one thing became clear: whatever the outcome, nothing would ever be the same. The decision they made in that room would not only affect their own lives, but have repercussions throughout society. Finally, after hours of intense debate, the room reached a consensus. The lawyers began drafting the necessary legal documents to establish the foundation, ensuring that every detail was meticulously addressed. The foundation would be named the Redemption Trust, symbolizing the journey from corruption to integrity. The public confessions were scheduled for the following week. Emily, Grace, Mr. Anderson, and the others prepared themselves for the inevitable media frenzy and legal consequences. They rehearsed their statements, knowing that their words would need to convey genuine remorse and a commitment to change. On the day of the confessions, the atmosphere was charged with anticipation. Journalists from around the world gathered, eager to witness the unprecedented event. The Redemption Trust's mission was outlined to support those affected by corruption, provide transparency in charitable endeavors, and advocate for systemic reforms to prevent future abuses. Mr. Anderson spoke first, his voice trembling but determined. He detailed his involvement in fraudulent activities and apologized to the victims. Grace followed, expressing her sorrow for her family's actions and her dedication to using her resources for the greater good. Mrs. Anderson, though still recovering, managed to convey her support for the foundation and her hope for a better future. Emily took the podium last. She spoke from the heart, sharing her journey from a desperate maid to an advocate for justice. "This foundation is not just about money," she said. "It's about healing and making amends. It's about ensuring that the mistakes of the past are never repeated." The public response was overwhelming. While some were skeptical, many praised the courage and transparency of those involved. Donations poured in to support the foundation's work, and partnerships with other organizations were quickly established. The Redemption Trust became a beacon of hope. It provided scholarships for underprivileged children, funded healthcare initiatives, and supported grassroots movements fighting corruption. The foundation's transparency and accountability set a new standard in the charitable sector, inspiring other organizations to adopt similar practices. Emily and Grace, now co-founders of the Redemption Trust, worked tirelessly to expand its reach. They traveled the world, sharing their story and advocating for ethical practices. Their bond, forged in adversity, grew stronger as they saw the tangible impact of their efforts. The legal consequences were severe but necessary. Mr. Anderson and other implicated individuals faced prison sentences, but they did so with a sense of purpose, knowing they were contributing to a greater good. The Anderson family, once synonymous with scandal, became a symbol of redemption and change. Years later, as Emily and Grace looked back on their journey, they marveled at how far they had come. The foundation had not only transformed their lives but also made a lasting impact on society. They had turned a story of greed and corruption into one of hope and renewal. Emily, reflecting on her brother's words, realized that they had indeed changed the lives of future generations. The Redemption Trust was a testament to the power of truth, integrity, and the unwavering belief that it is never too late to make things right. With their legacy secure, Emily and Grace continued their work, driven by the knowledge that their efforts had made the world a better place. Their story served as a reminder that no matter the darkness, there is always a path to redemption. The silence following Emily's proposal was broken by the sound of the door opening. A man in a suit entered, his imposing presence filling the room. It was the Attorney General, drawn by the magnitude of the case. "I've heard your proposal, Miss Emily," he said gravely. "It's admirable, but the law must take its course." The tension in the room intensified. Emily, however, did not back down. With a calm that surprised everyone, including herself, she addressed the Attorney General. "Sir," she said, "I understand the need for justice, but isn't true justice about repairing the harm and preventing future crimes? Our proposal does exactly that." The Attorney General looked at her for a long time, assessing her words. Finally, he nodded slowly. "Proceed," he said. With renewed energy, the group worked for hours, refining the plan's details. Mrs. Anderson, inspired by Emily's compassion, was the first to sign the agreement. "I want to be the person I deserve to be," she said, tears in her eyes. Mr. Anderson followed suit, agreeing to face reduced charges in exchange for his full cooperation. Grace committed to using her skills to ensure the foundation's transparency. One by one, the victims' representatives and lawyers joined the agreement. Emily's brother offered to be the public face of the foundation, a living testimony to its positive impact. As the last document was signed, a feeling of collective accomplishment filled the room. Emily looked around at the tired but hopeful faces and felt a weight lift from her shoulders. "This is just the beginning," she said softly. "The path to redemption will be long and difficult, but we'll walk it together." The Attorney General, impressed by the group's resolve, offered his support in implementing the plan within the legal framework. As the sun set, bathing the room in golden light, Emily reflected on the incredible journey that had begun with a simple lottery ticket. She had sought vengeance and found redemption, not just for herself but for everyone involved. Sometimes, Emily thought, looking at the Anderson family, her brother and Grace, true wealth isn't in money but in the opportunity to do the right thing, no matter how hard it is. With this reflection, the group dispersed, each carrying the responsibility of a new beginning and the promise of a better future, not just for them but for all those whose lives they would touch through their work with the foundation. The story of Emily, the Anderson family, and the lottery ticket would become a symbol of transformation and hope, reminding everyone that even in the darkest moments, there is the possibility of true redemption and change. Months later, the Redemption Trust Foundation was fully operational. Its initiatives ranged from supporting healthcare and education to advocating for transparency in businesses and charities. The foundation's first major project was to rebuild and expand the orphanage that had been deprived of its funds, ensuring that the children received the care and opportunities they deserved. Emily, Grace, and Emily's brother traveled extensively, sharing their story and inspiring others to take a stand against corruption and injustice. Their efforts attracted global attention, leading to partnerships with international organizations and further expanding the foundation's impact. Mr. Anderson, serving his reduced sentence, contributed from prison by participating in rehabilitation programs aimed at preventing white-collar crime. His willingness to atone for his actions played a crucial role in restoring some of the public's trust. Anderson, continuing her recovery, dedicated herself to volunteer work, finding a sense of purpose and healing in helping others. The Attorney General, staying true to his word, ensured that the legal proceedings were fair and transparent, holding all parties accountable while supporting the Foundation's mission. His involvement added a layer of credibility to the Redemption Trust, further bolstering its reputation. The media coverage of their journey had a ripple effect, inspiring similar initiatives worldwide. Whistleblowers and victims of corruption found the courage to speak out, knowing they were not alone. The Foundation provided them with legal support and a platform to share their stories, amplifying their voices and driving systemic change. As the years passed, the Redemption Trust Foundation became a beacon of hope and a model for ethical action. Emily's leadership and unwavering commitment to justice turned her into a respected global advocate. Her brother, thriving in his role as the Foundation's spokesperson, continued to be a source of inspiration, reminding everyone of the power of resilience and integrity. One evening, as Emily and Grace sat together, reflecting on their journey, Grace turned to her friend. "Emily, do you ever regret the choices we made?" Emily smiled, her heart full of gratitude. "No, Grace. Every step and every sacrifice was worth it. We've changed lives, including our own. And we've shown that redemption is possible, no matter how dark the path." Together, they looked toward a future filled with hope and possibility. The path to true justice and redemption had been long and arduous, but it was a path they were proud to have walked. Emily's journey had come full circle, and she had found her true calling to fight for justice, to stand up for what is right, and to inspire others to do the same. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey with Emily, Grace, and the Anderson family. We've witnessed a story of transformation, redemption, and the power of doing what is right, even when it's difficult. As we reflect on their journey, we want to hear from you. What have you learned from their story? Share one lesson or practice you will bring into your own life in the comments below. If you like this video, please leave your comment below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Your support helps us bring more inspiring stories to light. A big kiss, and see you in the next story.